He thought he could break her heart and walk away. But what he never expected was that his biggest regret would come wrapped in the most beautiful revenge he'd ever seen. This isn't just a story about betrayal, it's about how one girl turned heartbreak into a masterpiece of payback. And trust me, you've never seen revenge served this cold. Emily Parker and Jake Miller were the kind of couple everyone envied. They met during their sophomore year at NYU, both chasing big dreams in the city that never sleeps. Emily, with her bright blue eyes and infectious laugh, was studying graphic design and already had a growing Instagram following thanks to her creative posts and warm personality. Jake, tall, athletic, and always the life of the party, was majoring in business and had a knack for making friends wherever he went. Their love story started in the most cliché way possible: a spilled coffee in the campus cafe, a flurry of apologies, and a shared laugh that led to hours of conversation. From that day on, they were inseparable. Friends joked that they were relationship goals, and their social media feeds were a highlight reel of romantic dates, weekend getaways, and inside jokes. But beneath the perfect surface, cracks were beginning to form. It started with small things. Jake became distant, often distracted during their conversations. He started working late more often, claiming he needed to catch up on group projects or attend networking events. Emily, always trusting, brushed off her concerns until the night. Everything changed. It was a chilly Friday evening in November. Emily was curled up on the couch in their cozy Brooklyn apartment, waiting for Jake to come home. She'd made his favorite pasta and set the table with candles, hoping for a quiet night together. But as the hours ticked by, her excitement turned to worrying. At 11:47 p.m., Jake finally walked through the door, smelling faintly of expensive perfume that wasn't hers. He mumbled something about a last-minute meeting and headed straight for the shower. Emily's heart pounded in her chest, but she forced a smile and pretended not to notice. The next morning, as Jake slept in, Emily's phone buzzed with a message from her best friend, Sarah. "Hey, did you see Jake's Insta story last night?" "Who's that girl he was with?" Emily's stomach dropped. She opened Instagram and saw a blurry video of Jake at a crowded bar, laughing with a brunette in a red dress. The caption read, "Work hard, play harder." Emily's hands trembled as she scrolled through the comments, each one a dagger to her heart. She tried to convince herself it was nothing, just a coworker or a friend. But the seed of doubt had been planted. Over the next few weeks, Emily became a detective in her own relationship. She noticed the way Jake guarded his phone, the late-night texts he tried to hide, the sudden interest in going to the gym alone. She wanted to trust him, but the evidence was mounting. One night, as Jake showered, Emily's curiosity got the better of her. She picked up his phone and guessed his passcode, her birthday. The screen unlocked and her world shattered. There, in his messages, was a conversation with Madison W. The texts were flirtatious, filled with inside jokes and plans to meet up. The most recent message made Emily's blood run cold. "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again." Emily's vision blurred with tears. She put the phone down, her hands shaking. She wanted to scream, to confront Jake right then and there. But instead, she wiped her eyes and took a deep breath. If Jake wanted to play games, she'd show him how the game was really played. The plan for revenge. Emily's world had collapsed in silence. She didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't even confront Jake that night. Instead, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing with questions and plans. She replayed every moment of their relationship, searching for clues she'd missed, signs she'd ignored. The pain was sharp, but beneath it, something else began to grow. Determination. She knew she couldn't just walk away, not yet. Jake had betrayed her trust, and she needed to make sure he understood the consequences of his actions. Emily decided that her revenge wouldn't be loud or messy. It would be precise, calculated, and unforgettable. The next morning, Emily called her best friend, Sarah. Sarah had always been the voice of reason in her life, the one who'd seen her through every heartbreak and triumph. When Emily told her everything, Sarah listened quietly, then said, "He doesn't deserve your tears. Let's make sure he never forgets what he did." Together, they began to gather evidence. Emily started taking screenshots of Jake's messages, with Madison saving photos and videos from social media, and even noting the times and places Jake claimed to be working late. Sarah, who worked as a paralegal, helped Emily organize everything, creating a digital folder labeled "Just in case." But Emily didn't stop there. She started to change her routine, focusing on herself for the first time in months. She signed up for a public speaking class, determined to find her voice again. She started going to the gym, not to impress Jake, but to rebuild her confidence. She spent more time with friends, rediscovering the parts of herself she'd neglected. Jake, meanwhile, seemed oblivious to the storm brewing beneath Emily's calm exterior. He continued his affair with Madison, growing bolder as the weeks passed. He came home later and later, offered flimsy excuses, and barely noticed when Emily stopped. Asking questions, Emily played her part perfectly. She smiled, laughed at Jake's jokes, and acted as if nothing was wrong. But every night, she added more evidence to her growing collection, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. That moment came sooner than she expected. One evening, Jake announced that his company was hosting a big networking event and invited Emily to come along. "It'll be fun," he said, flashing his signature grin. "You'll finally get to meet some of my coworkers," Emily agreed, hiding her excitement. She knew Madison would be there, and she was ready to see the woman who had helped destroy her relationship. Sarah helped her pick out a stunning dress, sleek, black, and undeniably elegant. Emily looked in the mirror and barely recognized the confident woman staring back at her. The night of the event, Emily walked into the venue on Jake's arm, head held high. The room was filled with laughter, clinking glasses, and the low hum of conversation. Jake introduced her to his colleagues, who all seemed genuinely pleased to meet her. But Emily's eyes were searching for one person. She spotted Madison near the bar, laughing with a group of co-workers. Madison was beautiful, tall, with dark hair and striking features. For a moment, Emily felt a pang of insecurity, but she quickly pushed it aside. She had a job to do. As the night wore on, Jake grew more comfortable, even careless. He left Emily alone to mingle, and she watched as he made his way over to Madison. They spoke in hushed tones, their body language intimate and familiar. Emily snapped a quick photo with her phone, adding it to her growing collection. Later, as the event wound down, Emily excused herself and slipped into an empty conference room. She pulled out her phone and began sending the evidence she'd gathered to a secure email account. She knew she'd need every piece for what she had planned next. When she returned to the main room, Jake was waiting for her, his expression unreadable. "Ready to go?" he asked. "Absolutely," Emily replied, her voice steady. That night, as Jake slept, Emily finalized her plan. She would throw a party, a celebration of their anniversary, something Jake would never suspect. She would invite all their friends, Jake's coworkers, and even Madison. And when the time was right, she would reveal the truth in a way no one would ever forget. The setup days leading up to the anniversary party were a whirlwind of planning and anticipation. Emily poured her energy into every detail, determined to make the event unforgettable. She rented a beautiful loft in downtown Manhattan, decorated it with fairy lights and elegant floral arrangements, and sent out invitations to all of Jake's friends, colleagues, and of course Madison. Each invitation was carefully worded to sound like a genuine celebration of love and partnership. Sarah was by Emily's side every step of the way, helping with logistics and offering emotional support. "You're doing the right thing," she reassured Emily as they reviewed the guest list. "He needs to face the truth, and so does everyone else." In the days before the party, Jake seemed genuinely excited. He bragged to his friends about the upcoming event, completely unaware of what Emily had planned. He even bought her a new necklace as an anniversary gift, presenting it with a sheepish grin. Emily accepted it with a smile, tucking away the hurt she still felt. Behind the scenes, Emily was meticulous. She double-checked the presentation she'd prepared, a slideshow that began with sweet photos of her and Jake, then gradually shifted to the evidence of his betrayal, screenshots of messages, photos from the networking event, and even a short video of Jake and Madison together would be revealed at the perfect moment. She tested the projector, rehearsed her speech, and made sure everything would go off without a hitch. On the morning of the party, Emily woke up feeling strangely calm. She went for a run along the East River, letting the crisp air clear her mind. She thought about the years she'd spent with Jake, the good times, the laughter, the dreams they'd shared. She realized that while she was about to end something important, she was also freeing herself from a future built on lies. That evening, the loft filled with guests. There was laughter, music, and the clinking of glasses as everyone celebrated what they believed was a milestone in a perfect relationship. Jake was in his element, basking in the attention, introducing Emily to co-workers who complimented her on the beautiful setup. Madison arrived fashionably late, wearing a striking red dress. She greeted Jake with a hug that lingered just a moment. Too long, drawing curious glances from those nearby. Emily watched from across the room, her face serene, her heart pounding. As the night went on, Emily mingled with the guests, thanking them for coming and making small talk. She noticed the tension between Jake and Madison, furtive glances, whispered conversations, the way they seemed drawn to each other even in a crowded room. Emily felt a surge of vindication. Soon, everyone would see the truth. Finally, Emily tapped her glass, signaling for attention. The room quieted, and she smiled graciously at the crowd. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she began, her voice steady. "Jake and I have shared so many wonderful moments together, and I wanted to celebrate those memories with all of you, our friends, our family, our colleagues." She gestured to the projector behind her. "I put together a little presentation. I hope you enjoy it." The slideshow began with photos of Emily and Jake, vacations, birthdays, quiet moments at home. The guests smiled, some wiping away tears at the sweetness of it all. Jake beamed, his arm around Emily's shoulders. Then, the tone shifted. The next slide showed a screenshot of a message from Jake to Madison. "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Jake's smile faltered. More slides followed, photos of Jake and Madison at the networking event, messages exchanged late at night, a video of the two of them laughing together, oblivious to the world around them. The room fell silent. Madison's face turned pale. Jake stared at the screen, his expression a mix of shock and disbelief. Emily turned to face the crowd. "I wanted everyone to know the truth. I deserve better than this. And tonight, I'm choosing myself." Without another word, she walked out of the loft, leaving Jake and Madison to face the consequences of their actions. Fallout. The moment Emily stepped out into the cool Manhattan night, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The sounds of the party faded behind her, replaced by the rush of the city and her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. She didn't look back. For the first time in months, she felt truly free. Inside the loft, chaos erupted. Jake tried to regain control, stammering excuses to the stunned guests. Madison, humiliated and exposed, hurriedly gathered her things and slipped out a side door. The friends and colleagues who had admired Jake now looked at him with a mix of pity and disgust. Whispers filled the room. Some people left immediately, others stayed, eager to see how the drama would unfold. Sarah followed Emily outside, catching up to her on the sidewalk. "You did it," she said, pulling Emily into a tight hug. "I'm so proud of you." Emily smiled through tears she hadn't realized were falling. "I just couldn't let him get away with it, Sarah. I needed everyone to know." "You're stronger than you think," Sarah replied. "Now it's time to start over. On your terms." Over the next few days, the story of the party spread quickly. Mutual friends reached out to Emily, offering support and sharing their own stories of betrayal and heartbreak. Some admitted they'd suspected something was wrong between Jake and Madison, but hadn't wanted to get involved. Now, with everything out in the open, they rallied around Emily, helping her move out of the apartment she'd shared with Jake and find a new place of her own. Jake, meanwhile, was left to deal with the fallout. His reputation at work took a hit. His boss, who had attended the party, called him in for a meeting and questioned his judgment and professionalism. Madison stopped returning his calls, and word of their affair spread through the office like wildfire. Jake tried to reach out to Emily, sending long, apologetic texts and leaving voicemails begging for another chance. Emily ignored them all. She threw herself into her work, using her pain as fuel for her creativity. Her Instagram following grew as she shared honest, vulnerable posts about healing and self-discovery. Brands began to notice her authenticity, offering her collaborations and sponsorships. Emily found herself busier than ever, but also more fulfilled. One evening, as she sat in her new apartment overlooking the city, Sarah came over with a bottle of wine. They toasted to new beginnings and laughed about the absurdity of it all. Do you ever regret it? Sarah asked, swirling her glass. Emily shook her head. Not for a second. I needed to stand up for myself. I needed to show him and everyone else that I won't be treated like that. Sarah smiled. You're an inspiration, seriously. I think you helped a lot of people tonight. Emily looked out at the city lights, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't known in a long time. For the first time since Jake's betrayal, she felt hopeful about the future. Rebuilding. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of change for Emily. She poured her energy into her work, taking on new design projects and collaborating with brands that valued her vision and honesty. Her social media presence blossomed. People resonated with her story, and her follower count soared. She received messages from women all over the country, thanking her for her bravery and sharing their own experiences with betrayal and healing. Emily also made time for herself in ways she never had before. She joined a yoga studio, started journaling every morning, and took weekend trips with Sarah and other friends. Each day, she felt a little stronger, a little more like herself. Jake, meanwhile, struggled to pick up the pieces of his life. The fallout from the party had been swift and merciless. His boss demoted him, citing poor judgment and lack of integrity. Friends distanced themselves, unwilling to be associated with the scandal. Madison transferred to another office, and rumors about her and Jake's affair lingered long after she left. Jake tried to reach out to Emily one last time. He showed up at her new apartment, flowers in hand, eyes full of regret. Emily listened to his apology, her face calm and composed. I'm sorry, Emily, Jake said, his voice breaking. I made a huge mistake. I was stupid and selfish, and I lost the best thing that ever happened to me. Emily looked at him for a long moment, then shook her head. You didn't just make a mistake, Jake. You made a choice. And now you have to live with it. She closed the door, feeling a sense of closure wash over her. That night, Emily posted a photo on Instagram, a shot of the city skyline from her balcony. The caption simple but powerful, sometimes the best revenge is moving on. Her followers flooded the comments with support and encouragement. Emily smiled, realizing that she had turned her pain into something beautiful, something that could help others heal. As the months passed, Emily continued to thrive. She launched her own design studio, hired a small team, and landed her first big client. She traveled, explored new passions, and built a life that was entirely her own. One evening, as she walked through Central Park with Sarah, the sun setting behind the skyscrapers, Emily felt a deep sense of gratitude. She had been broken, but she had rebuilt herself stronger than ever. Sarah squeezed her hand. You did it, You really did. Emily smiled. I did, and I wouldn't change a thing. New horizons. As spring turned to summer, Emily's life continued to blossom in ways she never could have imagined. Her design studio, Parker Creative, quickly gained a reputation for bold, innovative work. She hired to more designers and assistant, transforming her small apartment operation into a bustling downtown office. Clients loved her authenticity and vision, and word of mouth brought in more business than she could have hoped for. Emily's personal life flourished as well. She reconnected with old friends, hosted dinner parties, and even tried her hand at painting a hobby she'd abandoned during her years with Jake. She found joy in the little things: morning coffee on her balcony, long walks through the city, the laughter of friends filling her home. One afternoon, Emily received an invitation to speak at a women's empowerment conference in Los Angeles. The organizers had followed her journey on social media and wanted her to share her story with others who might be struggling with heartbreak or betrayal. Nervous but excited, Emily accepted. The conference was a turning point. Standing on stage before hundreds of women, Emily spoke honestly about her pain, her anger, and the steps she'd taken to rebuild her life. She talked about the importance of self-respect, the power of community, and the freedom that comes from letting go of those who don't value you. After her talk, women lined up to thank her, many with tears in their eyes. They shared their own stories, and Emily realized that her experience, while uniquely hers, was also universal. Heartbreak, betrayal, and a journey back to oneself were things that connected them all. Back in New York, Emily's confidence soared. She started a podcast, Stronger Than Before, where she interviewed women from all walks of life about resilience, growth, and second chances. The podcast quickly gained traction, and Emily found herself invited to panels, interviews, and even TV segments. Through it all, she remained grounded, never forgetting the pain that had started her journey. She kept her circle close, relying on Sarah and her new friends for support and laughter. Jake, meanwhile, faded into the background of her life. She heard through mutual friends that he'd left his job and moved to a smaller city, hoping for a fresh start. Emily wished him well, but she no longer thought of him with anger or sadness. He was simply part of her past, a lesson learned, a chapter closed. One evening, Emily sat on her balcony, the city lights twinkling below. She sipped her tea and reflected on how far she'd come. The girl who had once cried herself to sleep over Jake was gone, replaced by a woman who knew her worth and wasn't afraid to demand it. Her phone buzzed a message from a podcast listener, thanking her for giving them hope. Emily smiled, her heart full. She had turned her pain into purpose, her heartbreak into healing, and she knew deep down that the best was yet to come. Unexpected encounters, months slipped by, and Emily's life felt like it was finally her own. She traveled for work and pleasure: Paris for a design expo, Seattle to visit her brother, Miami for a friend's bachelorette party. Each trip was a reminder of how much she'd grown. She was no longer defined by her relationship with Jake or by the pain he'd caused her. She was Emily Parker, entrepreneur, creator, and survivor. One rainy afternoon in New York, Emily ducked into a small cafe to escape the downpour. She ordered a chai latte and found a seat by the window, pulling out her sketchbook to jot down ideas for a new client. The bell above the door jingled, and she glanced up, her breath catching for a split second. Jake stood in the doorway, dripping wet, looking almost exactly as he had the day they met, except older, wearier, and somehow smaller. He spotted Emily and hesitated, then walked over. "Hey, Emily," he said quietly. Emily's heart didn't race, and her hands didn't shake. She simply nodded. "Hi, Jake. Mind if I sit?" he asked, gesturing to the empty chair. She shrugged, closing her sketchbook. "Sure." For a moment, neither spoke. Jake looked at his hands, then at her. "I heard about your studio, Parker. Creative. It's impressive." "Thank you," Emily replied, her voice even. Jake sighed. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry again. I know I've said it before, but I mean it. I lost everything, and I know it was my fault." Emily studied him, searching for the anger she used to feel. "It wasn't there. I hope you're doing better," she said simply. He nodded. "I'm getting there. It's been a long road. I just wanted you to know I'm happy for you. You look happy." Emily smiled, a real, gentle smile. "I am. I really am." Jake stood up. slinging his bag over his shoulder. "Take care, Emily. You too, Jake." As he left, Emily felt a wave of peace wash over her. She'd faced her past and found it powerless over her. She opened her sketchbook and began to draw, the lines flowing easily, her mind clear. That evening, she called Sarah and told her about the encounter. "It was strange," Emily admitted, "but I didn't feel anything. Not anger, not sadness, just closure." Sarah laughed. "That's how you know you've truly moved on?" Emily grinned. "Yeah, I think I finally have." New love, new life. As summer faded into autumn, Emily found herself embracing life with a newfound sense of freedom. She was busy, her design studio was thriving, her podcast had become a source of inspiration for thousands, and her circle of friends continued to grow. Yet, for the first time in years, she felt no pressure to fill the empty spaces in her heart. She was content, truly content, on her own. One evening, at a charity gala for young entrepreneurs, Emily was introduced to Daniel Carter, a tech startup founder with a quick wit and an easy smile. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, moving from business to art to favorite travel destinations. Daniel was attentive and genuinely interested in her ideas, not just her appearance or her story. When he asked for her number at the end of the night, Emily hesitated for only a moment before giving it to him. Their first date was at a small jazz club in the West Village. Daniel made her laugh in a way she hadn't laughed in years deep, unguarded and free. There was no pressure, no rush. He respected her boundaries and admired her independence. Emily found herself looking forward to their conversations, their shared silences, and the way Daniel listened to her dreams. As the weeks passed, Daniel became a steady presence in Emily's life. He celebrated her successes, cheered her on during setbacks, and never tried to overshadow her ambitions. For the first time, Emily felt seen not as someone's girlfriend or the girl who'd been cheated on, but as herself. One crisp October night, after a long walk through Central Park, Daniel stopped and turned to her. "You know, you're the bravest person I've ever met," he said softly. "Not because of what you went through, but because of how you turned it into something beautiful." Emily smiled, her heart full. "I used to think being brave meant never getting hurt. Now I know it means healing and loving again, even when you're scared." They stood together under the golden leaves, the city glowing around them. Emily realized that her story wasn't about revenge or heartbreak anymore. It was about growth, resilience, and the courage to open her heart again. As she leaned into Daniel's embrace, Emily knew she was exactly where she was meant to be, sharing the wisdom. The months rolled by, and Emily's life felt richer than ever. Her relationship with Daniel grew deeper, built on trust, laughter, and mutual respect. They traveled together, explored new restaurants, and spent quiet evenings at home, sharing stories and dreams. Daniel never shied away from Emily's past. Instead, he admired her strength and the way she had transformed pain into purpose. Emily's podcast, stronger than before, continued to flourish. She received invitations to speak at universities, women's groups, and corporate events. Each time she told her story honestly, never shying away from the raw details, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the night at the party, and the long road to healing. Her vulnerability resonated with audiences, and she often found herself surrounded by women eager to share their own journeys. One afternoon, after a particularly moving podcast episode, Emily received an email from a young woman named Chloe. Chloe wrote about her own experience with betrayal and how Emily's story had given her the courage to leave a toxic relationship. Emily teared up as she read the message, realizing just how far her influence had spread. Inspired, Emily decided to create an online community, a safe space for women to connect, share their stories, and support each other through heartbreak and recovery. The group grew rapidly, attracting members from all over the country. Emily and Sarah hosted weekly video chats, invited guest speakers, and organized in-person meetups in cities across the U.S. The community became a lifeline for many. Women found friendship, advice, and hope in each other's stories, Emily was proud of what she had built, not just for herself, but for everyone who needed a reminder that they were not alone. One evening, as she and Daniel prepared dinner together, Emily received a call from her mother. "I just wanted to tell you how proud I am of you," her mother said. "You took something painful and turned it into something beautiful." That takes real courage. Emily smiled, feeling the truth of her mother's words. She glanced at Daniel, who winked at her from across the kitchen, and felt a profound sense of gratitude that she had survived the storm. Now, she was helping others find their way through it, too. Full circle. Winter arrived in New York, blanketing the city in soft snow and simmering lights. Emily's life had settled into a rhythm she cherished, fulfilling work, meaningful friendships, and a loving relationship with Daniel. Her community project continued to grow, and she was invited to write a book about her journey, an offer she never would have imagined just a year before. As she wrote late into the evenings, Emily reflected on how far she had come. The pain of Jake's betrayal felt distant now, like a chapter from another life. She realized that while revenge had once fueled her, it was forgiveness and self-respect that had truly set her free. Her story was no longer about what she had lost, but about everything she had gained. One snowy Saturday, Emily hosted a gathering for her online community in a cozy Brooklyn cafe. Women from across the country traveled to meet her and each other, sharing stories and laughter over cups of hot chocolate. Emily listened with pride as members described how the group had helped them find strength, rebuild confidence, and even start new relationships. During the event, Sarah pulled Emily aside. "Do you ever think about that night?" she asked, her eyes twinkling. Emily smiled. "Sometimes. But it's not the pain I remember anymore, it's the moment I chose myself." That changed everything. Sarah hugged her. "You've inspired so many people, including me." As the evening wound down, Emily stood and addressed the group. "I want you all to know something," she said. "You're not defined by what someone else did to you. You're defined by how you choose to move forward. And you're never alone in that journey." Applause and cheers filled the cafe. Emily felt a wave of gratitude for every woman in the room and for the journey that had brought her here. Later that night, walking home with Daniel, Emily looked up at the city skyline. She squeezed his hand, feeling the warmth of his love and the strength of her own resilience. "I wouldn't change a thing," she whispered. Daniel smiled. "Neither would I." Emily knew her story would continue with new challenges, joys, and chapters yet unwritten, but whatever came next, she was ready. She had learned to trust herself, to love bravely, and to help others do the same, and that, she realized, was the greatest victory of all. New beginnings. As the new year dawned, Emily felt a renewed sense of purpose. Her book deal became official, and she threw herself into writing with the same passion she'd once reserved for her design work. The process was cathartic. Each chapter allowed her to revisit old wounds and see how much she'd grown. She wrote not just about betrayal and revenge, but about forgiveness, self-love, and the importance of community. Daniel was her biggest supporter, reading drafts late at night and offering encouragement when she doubted herself. Sometimes they'd walk together through the snowy city streets, discussing ideas for future projects and dreaming about the life they were building together. Emily's online community continued to flourish. She and Sarah expanded their reach, launching workshops and retreats for women looking to rebuild after heartbreak. They brought in therapists, career coaches, and artists to help members rediscover their passions and strengths. The retreats became legendary weekends filled with laughter, tears, yoga at sunrise, and evenings around bonfires where women shared their stories under the stars. One weekend, during a retreat in upstate New York, Emily sat with a group of women by the fire. One of them, a shy woman named Laura, spoke up for the first time. "I thought I'd never get over what happened to me," she said softly. "But being here with all of you, I finally feel like I can start again." Emily smiled, recognizing her own journey in Laura's words. "You can," she said. "We all can." Sometimes the hardest endings lead to the most beautiful beginnings. Back in the city, Emily's book neared completion. She wrote the final chapter on a quiet Sunday morning, sunlight streaming through her apartment windows. As she typed the last words, she felt a deep sense of accomplishment. She had taken control of her story and now she was ready to share it with the world. The book's release was met with excitement and praise. Readers from all over reached out to thank Emily for her honesty and courage. Her story became a beacon for those struggling in silence, proof that it was possible to heal and thrive after heartbreak. Emily's life was full, but she never forgot. The girl she had been, the one who had once believed her world was ending. She carried that girl with her, honoring her pain and celebrating her resilience. And as she looked to the future, Emily knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, she would face them with the same strength and grace that had carried her this far. The ripple effect. With the release of her book, Emily's influence reached farther than she'd ever imagined. She was invited to appear on talk shows, podcasts, and panels about resilience and women's empowerment. Each time she shared her story, she focused not on the betrayal, but on the transformation that followed the way she'd reclaimed her life, and how others could do the same. Emails poured in from readers around the world. Some wrote to say her words had given them the strength to leave toxic relationships. Others thanked her for helping them believe in love again, even after heartbreak. Emily responded to as many messages as she could, always reminding her readers that healing was a journey, not a destination. Her retreats grew in popularity, attracting women from different backgrounds and ages. What started as small gatherings became sold-out events, with waiting lists stretching months in advance. Emily and Sarah expanded their team, bringing on more facilitators and therapists to support the growing community. One retreat, held in the mountains of Colorado, stood out in Emily's memory. There, a woman named Priya shared her story of surviving a difficult divorce and rebuilding her life from scratch. As Priya spoke, the entire group listened in rapt silence. Many moved to tears. Afterward, she hugged Emily and whispered, "You helped me believe that I could start over." Thank you. These moments reminded Emily why she did the work. Her pain had created a ripple effect of healing, touching lives she would never meet in person. Meanwhile, Emily and Daniel's relationship continued to deepen. They supported each other's ambitions, celebrated milestones, and navigated challenges as a team. Daniel's startup flourished, and he credited Emily's encouragement for much of his success. They talked openly about the future, about travel, family, and the possibility of building something lasting together. One evening, after a speaking event in Chicago, Daniel surprised Emily with a quiet dinner at their favorite restaurant. As they finished dessert, he reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "I know we've both been through a lot," Daniel said, his eyes warm and steady. "But I can't imagine my life without you. Will you marry me?" Emily's heart swelled with joy. Tears filled her eyes, not from pain, but from gratitude. She realized that every step of her journey, every heartbreak and triumph, had led her to this moment. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling with happiness. 1,000 times, yes. As they embraced, Emily knew her story had come full circle. She had turned her deepest wounds into her greatest strengths, and in doing so, had found a love that was honest, supportive, and true. Building a legacy. With her engagement to Daniel and the success of her book and community, Emily felt like she was living a dream she had once thought impossible. But she wasn't content to stop there. She wanted to create something lasting, not just for herself, but for women everywhere who needed a voice and a safe place to heal. That Emily and Sarah began planning a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting survivors of betrayal and abuse. The nonprofit would offer counseling services, workshops, scholarships, and emergency assistance. They reached out to therapists, social workers, and community leaders, building a team passionate about making a difference. Launching the nonprofit was challenging, requiring long hours, fundraising, and navigating bureaucracy. But Emily embraced the work with the same determination that had carried her through heartbreak. Each success, no matter how small, felt like a victory not just for her, but for every woman who would benefit. Daniel stood by her side through it all, offering his business expertise and unwavering support. Together, they balanced their personal lives with their shared mission, growing stronger as partners and leaders. One crisp spring morning, Emily stood at the podium at their nonprofit's inaugural gala. Surrounded by supporters, survivors, and friends, she spoke from the heart. "This organization is more than a project," she said. "It's a promise that no one has to face betrayal or pain alone. That healing is possible, and that together, we can build a future filled with hope, strength, and love." The applause was thunderous. Emily felt tears of joy and pride streaming down her face. This was the moment she had been working toward, a legacy born from pain but transformed by courage. A new chapter. As the nonprofit flourished, Emily found herself busier than ever, but also more fulfilled. She traveled across the country, visiting partner organizations and speaking at events. Each trip brought new faces and stories, women who had rebuilt their lives, families who had found hope, and communities that had grown stronger together. Emily and Daniel set a wedding date for the following autumn. The planning was joyful and free of stress, a celebration of not just their love, but of everything they had overcome. They decided on a small ceremony in Central Park, surrounded by friends, family, and the women whose lives Emily had touched. Sarah was, of course, Emily's maid of honor. On the morning of the wedding, as they got ready together, Sarah hugged Emily tightly. "You're proof that life can be beautiful after heartbreak," she whispered. The ceremony was simple but perfect. Emily walked down the aisle in a dress she had designed herself, her heart full as she met Daniel's gaze. Their vows were honest and heartfelt, promising to support each other through every challenge and to celebrate every joy. After the ceremony, as the sun set over the city, Emily looked around at the people gathered, her family, her friends, the women from her retreats and nonprofit. She realized that her journey had come full circle. What had begun as a story of betrayal and revenge was now a story of love, resilience, and community. During the reception, Emily gave a short speech. "We all have chapters in our lives that we wish we could erase," she said. "But sometimes those chapters lead us to the most beautiful places. Thank you for being part of my story and for letting me be part of yours." That night, as she and Daniel danced under the fairy lights, Emily felt a peace she had never known before. She was surrounded by love, friendship, and the knowledge that her pain had not been in vain. She had built a new life not despite her heartbreak, but because of it. The journey's end and a new beginning. Years had passed since the night Emily discovered Jake's betrayal. Looking back, she saw that moment not as an ending, but as the catalyst for everything that followed. Through heartbreak, revenge, healing, and growth, she had transformed herself and her life. Emily and Daniel built a home filled with laughter, creativity, and love. Their partnership was a testament to the power of trust and respect. Together, they supported Emily's nonprofit, which had become a beacon of hope for thousands of women across the country. Emily often thought about the girl she once was, the one who felt broken and lost. She was proud of how far she'd come and grateful for the strength she'd found within herself. Her story had become more than just a personal journey. It was a message to anyone facing betrayal or hardship. You can rise, you can heal, and you can thrive. One quiet evening, as Emily sat on her porch watching the sunset, she reflected on the path she'd walked. The pain of the past no longer held power over her. Instead, it had shaped her into a woman who knew her worth and was unafraid to claim happiness. Her phone buzzed with a message from Sarah, "Ready for our next adventure?" Emily smiled, feeling the excitement of the future. Life was full of possibilities, and she was ready to embrace them all. The end of one story was just the beginning of another.